Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L here for what may very well be the final My Hero Academia chapter review. I hope it's okay for me to be showing this. Oh well, it's just one picture. We'll be careful. Anyway, hey everyone, it's been a while when it comes to My Hero Academia, but we're here for the final epilogue that came out in the volume. You know, on the way here, people were always asking me what I thought was going to be in the final pages, and I try not to say anything. If you know me, you know my opinion about this is that there's a lot of potential for things to go wrong or for something to be disappointed. So I always kind of like keep my expectations low. Now, in terms of this, you know, how was this final epilogue for me? Well, honestly, this is the kind of stuff that I actually really enjoy. Like when we're done with a series, I'm really happy to see characters living their lives. So I got a pretty nice epilogue for myself. I'm very happy with what I ultimately saw here. I know that some people aren't super happy that it's not conclusive enough, but honestly, like when you look at the chapter, it's 100% conclusive because of the way Horikoshi set this up. But otherwise, the other big thing in the chapter, aside from Izuku no Chako, is the whole thing about the hero rankings. I personally don't really care about that. I am very happy to see the majority of Class 1A are in the top 50. I think that's amazing. Imagine being the loser that got picked up by like what, a third of the top 50 heroes, and one of them is number 2. Like, ugh. And then two of them are war heroes essentially. Yeah, no, I feel bad for that one guy that got dinged. But overall, I found it to be a pleasant chapter. It was better than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a bit more vapid. I am kind of sad we didn't see All Might or Aizawa in it. And it's interesting that Bakugo is picking up Edge Shot. But yeah, overall, it was interesting the omissions that we got, but it was pretty focused on 1A plus the third years. There's a few little like parts there that I think is silly. Like when they're celebrating Todoroki, they say the guy from class 1A got to being number 2. The reason I think it's silly is because, yeah, you guys were in class 1A, but you were also in class 2A and you were in class 3A. You guys all did 3 years of My Hero Academia. You guys did the 3 years of school. The reason they say 1A is because that's what the readers know them as. But the reason I bring that up is because that is one interesting spot where reader convenience overwhelms what people would actually say. Like actually in these situations, well, if it was in the West, like in these situations, they would say the graduating class of so and so year. That would be what would actually be said. But just, you know, sticking to 1A, that's only because of the readers being with 1A and not 2A or 3A. In terms of them as they went through the years, that's pretty much what that is. But that's such a weird little thing. It's just like it's very cool when you see it happen. Anyway, let's dissect the most important parts of this chapter. So we begin the chapter with Ochako. Alright, and we're pretty much going into this whole thing like, okay, Ochako's dreaming of Toga, but she never really remembers the entirety of the dream. This is just really important because, as you see, it's a framing device, because by the time that we get to the end of the chapter, the dream has reached its culmination. A commenter I was talking to yesterday made a really, like, he summed it up really nicely, is that the chapter really gives Ochako a lot of closure when it comes to, like, Himiko's role in her life and her thing with Izuku. So that is true. Anyway, we begin the chapter with the dream, right? Okay, we move on. We have her waking up from the dream. I just want to like point out this shot because it feels so real. She has her outfit in the background and like just the mess that she has in her office. It's just really cool to see the real life of a professional working hero. Like I just really like that. I really like that. I really feel like this chapter felt a lot like a school briefs volume drawn, and I really like that kind of feeling. I do enjoy school briefs. Okay, so I've skipped ahead to this part because this is the next significant part. When we go into this spot where we get to see the big 3 or the former big 3, we have this whole thing talking about, yo, this is what quirk counseling looks like. So Horikoshi is still very much in love with showing how the world is becoming a better place for people that could be like Tenko. So this is pretty cool. But the most incredible thing here, or the most critical thing here, is when Sanito brings up, does that mean you get your personal time? And the reason that's important is because it's establishing, well, look, Ochako's not really taking care of her personal time. She is like Izuku in a lot of ways, and in this case, she is just kind of sacrificing herself. I'm not really indulging in what she probably should be indulging in. Now, Mirio, I'm gonna just take a moment here. Mirio is number 1. I personally don't care too much about that. I know some people say like, what level of dangers are people facing if Meteor is at number 1? And it's like, it's true. But like Meteor is also probably the funniest person in the world, so it's a popularity contest when you look at Meteor. But honestly, Meteor being at number 1, I think is indicative of what they say in the chapter itself, that villains aren't as bad as they were during their era. Regardless, this part is really cute. It gives us a little bit of world building of the new world in Hero Academia, but it still follows the whole thing about Ochako. Anyway, this whole segment pretty much ends off with Ochako saying that she loves what she does and like she can still see her friends, so she still has her time all the time. She's just pretty much deflecting. So I've skipped ahead again. There's an interesting segment when Tsuyu and Ochako are talking about this, where Ochako's kind of wondering, well, like, is Toga inside of me, like through some kind of weird mechanism? Because the blood itself, like your blood cells, like what, they live for 120 days. Your blood's not in your body forever. That thing dies. So I actually like this idea because I think it's really consistent with your academia that, yeah, maybe we have like this exists in our world too, and it's what the whole vestige thing was first presented as when Garaki was talking about it. Like the idea that if you get your eye replaced with someone else's, that you might like have memories of the original owner of the eye or something like that. I know there's a pseudoscience term for it, but overall I like that idea that, yeah, maybe some part of Toga like lives on, and in Hero Academia universe vestiges are a thing. So I do think that in Hero Academia you could say that organs carry vestiges with them. I don't think that would be crazy in the world of Hero Academia. Regardless, I really like this segment, and what I really love is this part right here, where Tsuyu and Ochako, really, this is showcasing their friendship in really amazing ways. One thing that I as I come into this chapter, I keep thinking like, I wish we could have gotten more of these slow moments. I know it would have made the manga longer, but I would have really appreciated these kind of slow moments there. But I feel like Horikoshi's only doing this now because he's at the end. But honestly, when I look at this and I think about things like Midnight, if you had this kind of slowness and wait to like Midnight's death and funeral and that kind of stuff, I think the manga would have been significantly better, but maybe it wouldn't be as popular week to week. Anyway, after that we finally see Izuku, and this is something where I really just respect Horikoshi. I respect him because he stays true to the characters. He's not there to like lie about the situation with Izuku. Izuku has problems, and these problems were never addressed, and Horikoshi stuck to that. Very quickly, I'll say this whole segment with Kirishima, Bakugo, and Izuku, I love it. I think it's great. I love slice of life. That's great. But otherwise, I love this moment. It's the thing about Bakugo telling Izuku that he needs to think about himself more often, think more highly about himself. I agree. This is the big problem. Izuku's self-esteem is in the gutter. I'm glad that Horikoshi is saying it. The reason that he can say it is because it's true. It's fundamentally just true. Once more, Bakugo comes in and he is the guy giving Izuku the words of wisdom that Izuku needs to hear. And then this whole thing, given especially to everyone, means that no one is really special to you, and that's clearly in reference to Ochako. So I think Bakugo is very in tune with what's going on here. Speaking of that, we got shipping updates. Like one of them was for Vanta Black and Mushroom Girl. I think it's really cute that they got together. I think it's cute that they were asking about Jiro and Kaminari. I wish we could have gotten more of those kind of confirmations, but I'm glad we even got one at all. You know, I'm happy we got one. Now Shoto got a segment here. He's the number 2 hero. Ultimately, like, Shoto's part is just cute. It doesn't really do anything big for me just because it doesn't change anything. It's just him saying that he's a cool guy. If there is one placement that surprises me though, it's definitely Shoji being number 9. Like him being a top 10 hero is so surprising. Another one that was pretty cool was Monoma being in number 10. I think he deserves it. I love that. I love that he's also beating out the genius scholar that was Juzo. But yeah, no, Monoma being number 10 is amazing. He's got incredible style. Anyway, Shoto's segment, we just kind of learned what he's about. We have some pretty cool ways of representing the flashbacks, that being pages of a manga. I thought that was really neat. We have ultimately this whole thing about Dabi confirming that he died. Now, I knew that he died. I wanted to know when exactly he died, and it's kind of unfortunate that we don't see Endeavor in this chapter either. I think that would have been one of the things I would have liked. But again, this chapter is more about Class 1A than anything else, and I think everyone that showed up in the last chapter wouldn't show up here. Okay, and then let's start going down towards the Izuku and Ochako thing. We got the distraction, that being the updates on everyone's lives. We go to Izuku and Ochako. Anyway, when this moment happens, after Ochako's talking about how much she wanted to keep talking to Izuku and it never really got to happen, you know, before that my heart was starting to break, because it's like, I know that this Toga dream is going to come back to be effective, but we got this segment, thank God. And now what's really interesting is that when Izuku and Ochako meet, they are still very far apart, and so it really brings up questions about Toga's existence and the way that this is seen, with Toga getting behind Ochako and pushing her along, and then her falling toward Izuku. I feel like that must mean that Toga actually is causing an effect in Ochako, and that's the reason that's important, just because like I think Ochako was right. I think she's right that there is a vestige somehow inside of her. I think we are definitely in that territory, just because of the way that this all happens here. Also very cute. So it's really cool that Horikoshi kind of ended us off on something that made me think a little bit more, and I think, yeah, Toga is still alive inside of Ochako. Now this is something that translation did. I don't know if this will be the same, but from Ochako's perspective, she is 100% buying in, at least in this translation, that Toga is still a factor in all this. We were thinking the same thing about wanting to talk to Izuku more. So definitely a very like mysterious kind of point to end the chapter off on. Now people aren't happy with this little hand holding. They think it's too friendly, but no, like honestly, like when the entire chapter is about Izuku and Ochako, like the thematics are all about them, like no, they're definitely going to give this a run. The only thing that would have been better than this is to have jumped a few more years in the future and to see their wedding. That would have, or like see their kids. That would have been the only thing that would have been better than this. Because otherwise, this is pretty much confirming, oh yeah, they're going to try to date. They're going to try and give this a shot. Because the entire chapter is about Ochako's life and lack of her personal life. And like the justification for why she hasn't hung out with Izuku. It's cool to know this is 1 month after Izuku got the suit. That's how I read it. That's how I interpret it. Like you have the entire framing of it. To just base it on like, no, this is too friendly just because of that final like hand holding segment. To base it on that and ignore the context of the entire chapter, I think is a little bit silly. No, this is Horikoshi getting as close to saying that they're dating without actually putting it on the page. Now, you guys might not be surprised to hear this, but what I'm very interested in is the afterword. I love afterwards. I love when authors tell people how shit actually goes. So allow me to read this for you paragraph by paragraph. The real final chapter is 429. 430 is more like a curtain call. I drew it to resemble a game's bonus stage. My Hero Academia is now complete. It's been so long since the final act title drops, right? If I were to list the aspects of the story that I feel were lacking or didn't quite reach the highs that I wanted, we'd be here all day. But I'm glad that you kept reading it until the very end, because if you didn't, I wouldn't have been able to draw it. Me personally, I wish that the Shonen Jump authors had like a blog that they could just write articles about what they think they did wrong and what they think they did right. I would love to know more about how they think about things. I wish they were more superstar like Brandon Sanderson. You know what? This is pretty normal, I think. I think the majority of people that go through writing a story, they will always feel like they could have done something better. Because like fundamentally, who you are tomorrow could be a lot better than who you were today. Manga creators are creatures that come with a pre-recorded line. It's all thanks to the reader support. But I think me and all my peers keep saying that not because of politeness only, but because it's true. Both in a number and economics way and in a psychological way. You guys give me so much strength. Every time you root for my characters, I move into higher gear and go like, you can do it. You can do even better. I think that's really cute. I think that's, yeah, no, I believe that. For him, Hero Academia always left me a feeling of this chapter doesn't match with my skill level. It was just pure luck that I was able to produce something like this, like a Black Flash. Also, his references to the other manga, I think was amazing. So I felt like I needed to keep going beyond my limits for the rest of the series. I was fighting against my own self-consciousness every single day. Is this chapter better than the first one? Am I drawing something better than chapter 1? If I'm not getting better, no one will keep reading it. Those were my also anxious weeks. I believe that. I 100% believe that. I think he was racked with anxiety. Everything that we've seen in the interviews indicates that he's racked with anxiety. I was about to say insanity. Anxiety. So I believe him. It's pretty rough. But when I took time to read fan letters, and we also know that he reads fan letters. We know that he read letters, and we know that they were like, they impacted him a lot when little kids were saying they were scared during My Villain Academia, I think. The anxiety disappeared from his mind and joy took over. or rather, he was able to keep the anxiety in check for a while. This may sound like he's overly dependent on the fans, but he'd rather compare it to gasoline. It felt like you guys were telling him, "Don't worry, everything will be fine." I'm mixing things up. I'm gonna read exactly what it says on the page. My apologies. As you can see, I'm a rather weak individual. I can never believe in myself. It's like I ate the weak fruit. I appreciate the One Piece reference. And My Hero Academia was only able to exist because a guy like me got encouraged by your words. You know, it sucks whenever you're like hearing about their self-esteem issues, but to be honest, and looking at it from a reviewer standpoint, 100% you can see that he's worried about this thing not being that great. We know that that's true because he got very particular, he got very paranoid about how explained things were, and I am sure that him seeing the memory that the fandom has, at least on the English side, I assume it's just as bad on the Japanese side, but people just aren't very good at reading, and so a lot of times they're the ones that end up at the top of like exposure. So I understand this perspective. I mean, like, I think we see it in Hero Academia a lot. Hero Academia is like one of the tightest stories because of how often things are explained after first being introduced, or how often they're relitigated or reiterated. This happens a lot. I did a review for Dan Machi, and I think Dan Machi's author also has seen the same problem, where in the Dan Machi novels, it's a little bit worse because you have so much more space for reiteration. And the Dan Machi author is very prone to reiterating a thing in 8 different ways. If you're paying attention to the story, it is a situation where it kind of bogs everything down, because you're not the reader that they are writing it for. It's for the one that doesn't read it the first time and understand what's going on the first time. That's why all this reiteration happens. So I actually think, you know, seeing how it happens across so many series, I think as we go into the future, I think we're going to see more reiteration of something that was already introduced 2 chapters before. It's going to keep happening more. And a lot of it, I think, is because the dumbest people are the most prone to going on social media and talking about it, or going somewhere and talking about it where the authors can see and then like start wondering. You know, we could also like raise questions about accessibility. If you want to improve accessibility to your series, you probably are better off reiterating things, even if it does mean that the more veteran readers will be a little bit annoyed. But again, you know, when you're dealing with this problem, what else can you really do? Anyway, I don't think I'm projecting. I think we have evidence of it throughout Hero Academia. I think when you have him talking about his anxieties, when he's worried about whether or not people keep reading it, I think this all kind of leans into it. I think Horikoshi is an incredibly smart person, and I think when he sees something, like someone not understanding something that happened in his story, I think he sees that and internalizes it as he needs to be clearer, or he needs to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Okay, anyway, yes, you are this strong, and yes, you're capable of making this power reach other people. Thank you for giving me power. The afterword is my fan letter to you, which I think is really cute. If during these past 10 years, Hero Academia was able to give you even 1 drop of gasoline, I'll be able to proudly announce that I've developed a perpetual motion machine. Thank you so much for reading and looking after my characters. P.S. For chapter 431, I think this is really important. I turn off the cameras and free the characters from their dramas. I'm grateful to all of them who kept doing their best for so long. Okay, so in case you don't understand what that last line means, it's an explanation of what we're doing in this chapter. So what he is saying is, because like in Hero Academia, he skips the little boring stuff. He skips slice of life pretty often. What he's saying here is that, okay, I have to be careful here, because like it's specifically, the problem is the word drama. Izuku and Ochako, and you would say that's drama. No, that's not the kind of drama he's talking about. He's talking about life and death drama, or like a little girl's life hangs in the balance. There is no danger here, not really. There is no big thing that is ruining the characters' lives right now. It's a pretty simple day. Like Ochako said, tomorrow she goes back to work. He is just shining a light on them when danger is not a factor. That's pretty much what that means here. That's why you have this particular chapter being as low stakes as it is. It's just a normal day in their life. Overall, the afterword is lovely. And overall, the final chapter, this is my style of chapter. I love it. I love it. Fundamentally, I love it. I would have liked to get more conclusions, but it wasn't about showing more of the world. It was just about Izuku and Ochako, which is super cute. Guys, let me know what you thought down below. I'm going to call it there. Until next time, I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day. I hope you keep doing your best too, just like the characters.